Hi everybody. In this video, I'd like to go over some of the main moves in the Kalam Cosmological Argument by William Lane Craig. After some biological discussion about Craig's interest in the argument, Craig presents the cosmological argument. Here's the argument. Number one, whatever begins to exist has a cause of its beginning. Number two, the universe began to exist, and the conclusion is therefore the universe has a cause of its beginning. Now let's take each premise, 1 and 2, the premises, separately, leaving aside possible objections for the end. First, whatever begins to exist has a cause of its beginning. Craig adjusts the wording of the premise to avoid a possible objection about the decay of subatomic particles. But for our purposes, we're going to set that aside and stay with the original wording for simplicity. We can agree not to use that objection, so the revised premise is not necessary. So why should we believe that the first premise is true? Craig gives 3 reasons in support of it. First, something cannot come from nothing. This seems straightforward enough. Craig says if you deny this premise, then you've got to think that the whole universe just appeared at some point in the past for no reason whatsoever. Nothing that we've ever experienced has happened without a cause, at least so far as we know, so it seems impossible to imagine something happening without something causing it to happen. If this is true, then it appears that we must accept the premise that everything that begins to exist has a cause. The second argument for this first premise is this: if something can come into being from nothing, then it becomes inexplicable why just anything or everything doesn't come into being from nothing. Think about it, he says. Why doesn't root beer or bicycles or Beethoven come into being from nothing? Why only universes? It seems absurd to think that everything except the universe has a cause. If he's right, then again, we should accept premise 1. Craig's third argument for the first premise is that not only common experience, but scientific evidence confirms the truth of premise 1. Just remind us here that premise 1 is whatever begins to exist has a cause of its beginning. Okay? Arguments like this and papers like this, it's good to go back and frequently look at the original argument again as you go along in the reading. So, in other words, science has formed a consensus around the theory, Craig says, that the universe began at one particular time. If he's right about this, then it provides another reason to believe premise 1. Then we come to premise 2 of the argument that says the universe began to exist. Okay? Craig's main philosophical argument for this is one that was proposed by medieval Islamic philosopher Al-Ghazali. It goes something like this. If we try to imagine the future being infinite, then we are imagining a future that is potentially infinite, and maybe that's not hard to do. It's not actually infinite because it hasn't happened yet, but potentially infinite, even though our conception of it may be a little unclear, at least it makes a certain kind of sense to imagine that the future could go on and on. However, the difficulty comes in imagining an infinite past. Craig introduces some illustrations from mathematicians that are designed to demonstrate that an infinite past seems absurd. I will trust you will read these for yourself. If he can show that the opposite of what he's trying to prove is impossible, then it appears that the original premise is true. It's a lot of good stuff here. I think you will you'll find it very interesting. Okay. two what he calls philosophical arguments. He uses thought experiments to try to drive this point home that it is incoherent, even absurd, to think that past time could have been infinite. Okay. To keep this short, though, I'll let you read that part yourself. And she makes some scientific arguments there. Okay, in conclusion. During the conclusion section, Craig says that if his premises are accepted, then the universe must have a cause of its beginning. Of course, Craig wants to prove more than this, including that this cause must be a God that is uncaused, transcends space and time, is material and non-physical, unimaginable, etc. He goes a bit quickly through these, that is unimaginably powerful, etc. He goes a bit quickly through these arguments, not spending near as much time on them as he does on the previous points. More about that in a moment. Next, I'd like to go through some possible objections to this cosmological argument that's presented before us. Let's go back to the original statement of the argument here. Apologize for this. The first premise was that, or actually the second premise is that the universe must have had a cause. Okay. I'm sorry, the universe began to exist. Second and third premise, it must have had a cause. The main idea here is that the argument for this is that everything we've experienced in our lives has a cause. So the universe must be the same kind of thing as what we've experienced, and so it also must have a cause. The problem is that the universe is a different kind of thing entirely from anything else that anyone has ever experienced. All of our experiences have occurred within the universe. No one has had any experiences outside the universe. To say that it is a thing, or especially a type of thing, that is to say that the universe is a thing or a type of thing, seems kind of odd, since no one knows what kind of thing a universe is. We only know of one, and we only know that we're in it somehow, or at least we use the metaphor of being in it. So why think that our experiences within the universe would tell us anything about how the universe itself is from the outside, or how it was caused? To do that would be to assume that the universe exists within some kind of container in a similar way that our experiences exist inside the container of the universe. But since nobody knows what being outside of the universe would be like, that's an inferential jump that seems unwarranted. A second objection, also to the second and third premise, is that if what existed before the universe existed was outside of space and time, what sense does it make to say that something existed? I'm sorry, what sense, so let me say that again. If what existed before the universe existed was outside of space and time, what sense does it make to say that something caused the universe as if there was a first cause A, followed in time by an event B, the universe popping into existence? Our conception again of what the universe might be like and what occurs in time. All of our experiences have occurred in time, and so if there is no time, how can something have come before the universe began to exist? What would that even mean if there's no time at all? That's assuming that there is a contextual time that includes the universe and some more things. But space and time, as Craig says himself, begins at the Big Bang. So for there to be something else before that implies that there's a time factor involved, but that would seem to be impossible. Frankly, we don't know what could possibly have got the universe going, or what kind of processes occurred before the Big Bang, if it even makes any sense. And it doesn't seem like it really does to say what happened before. The objection would go something along the order of, it's okay to say that we don't know how the universe happened. The question would be, does Craig meet his burden of proof, of convincing us that he knows how the universe happened? A third set of objections could be made to Craig's arguments about the characteristics of the first cause of the universe. Let me go down here. Okay. Sorry, let me go back to here, the conclusion. Okay, it's right in here in this area. So the characteristics of the first cause of the universe, that is, since even if the cosmological argument is accepted, one has only accepted that the universe was caused, not that it was caused by a personal God, such as the God of the Bible or the Quran. For instance, Craig argues that since the cause of the universe had to be outside of space and time, the cause had to be immaterial and non-physical. Okay? But how could something immaterial affect something material? When we witness two things happening, we're experiencing a physical thing affecting another physical thing, such as when a pool player hits a pool ball with a stick and the ball rolls across the table. But how does something non-physical cause something physical? This point has been a criticism of mind-body dualism since the 16th century. The debate goes on. And so it seems to be an unwarranted move in this argument, at least without more explanation and supporting arguments. Okay. Can you think of any other objections to the Kalam cosmological argument? Can you think of reasonable responses to the objections presented here in this video? If you can, feel free to post about it in the forum this week. I hope this video has helped you understand this very interesting argument for the existence of God. Thank you for your time and attention.